In our co-op, we have an essentials class as well as an honors class. So in the honors class, we do the entire load. And in the essentials class, they do the lighter load that Roman Roads publishes. I have on occasion removed some of the reading if it was a little extensive for one of the weeks, or sometimes because we're also cramming it into 8-week terms, so that means 7 weeks of reading versus I think they have 9 weeks in the Roman Roads curriculum. I have found for especially the epics or the story type literature, it's absolutely not too much. So when you're reading the Iliad or the Aeneid or Beowulf, the students absolutely love it. I would add that they love it more if you do some of that reading out loud. It makes a huge difference if you read some of it and they even just get a taste for how enjoyable it is. There have been times when I will modify some of the reading. I think I gave a modified version of, no, that's not what happened. With some of it, they actually read more. So for Herodotus and Thucydides, some of my students read the entire book, which Roman Roads doesn't even have that in their reader. So some of my students actually read all of Herodotus and Thucydides because they wanted to. But I think for some students, it may be helpful to give reading that you could skim, because some parts of even the great books are not worth that slow reading as much as other parts. The great books, as we've talked about, is not really a canon in that every part of it is fantastic. Not every part of every single book that you'll read is the best of, it's not the best of that author's writing. So overall, I think that the curriculum is great to have that much reading. I love that for the early moderns, the reading's a lot lighter. That content is way more about a deeper understanding. But all of this really goes back to also what my goal is with the reading for the students and with the curriculum for the students. My goal isn't that they actually have a comprehensive understanding of all of Old Western culture. If it was, I'd be basically an idiot. That's not going to happen in 4 years. It didn't happen for me in 4 years of high school, as well as a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. It's not going to happen in someone's lifetime. Even for Mr. Callahan, he's not an expert on everything. So what is your goal? And for me, the goal with their reading is actually not even that they go super in depth with every part of it. I actually want them to get a big picture so that they can go back later. I do anticipate that my students will go back and read some of these books later. Not all of them. I think some of them, I know all of my students have a deep affection for the Aeneid, because I think it was the first thing that they read, one of the first things they read as 13 and 14-year-olds. And I think we read some of it out loud, and we did some presentations and some summaries of it for our co-op. And there will be things they read like that they'll read just for the pleasure of it, just because the story is good. But I anticipate later on, as they're studying various things, they may go back and wonder what Calvin said about something, or what Augustine said about something, because they're aware that there was this author who did say something about that topic. Or they'll think, they're studying history, or maybe they're teaching their kids history, or trying to think through that. I'm like, what was Thucydides' perspective on that, or Herodotus? And they might get into secondary sources or dig into just one particular part of the book. But my goal was to give them kind of a 10,000-foot view of things, which is why I do enjoy the broader reading. And I would also add that if you're going to do that much reading, I would encourage you to recognize that there may be parts that they're not going to recall as much, or really get into to read at as much depth. But I think I really like the way that the Roman Roads has, the Greeks and the Romans are pretty heavy reading. You just do a lot of reading because of the nature of that reading. It's much more stories, it's that type of thing. Versus once you get into philosophy, I appreciate that even with Plato or Aristotle, the amount of reading's less than you might read out otherwise.